Imagine breaking your leg with no hospital for 100 miles, no cast, no antibiotics, and no one who even knows what an infection is. By every rule of survival, you'd be dead within a week. So why do we keep finding skeletons that prove otherwise? This is the story of what actually happened when ancient humans got sick. Not the version where the weak were left behind, but the real one. And it might change how you think about the people texting you "feel better soon" right now. Let's start almost 2 million years ago in a place called Dmanisi, in the country of Georgia. In 2005, a team led by paleoanthropologist David Lord Kippenitz found a skull belonging to an elderly Homo erectus man. Here's the strange part. He had almost no teeth left, and they were lost years before he died. The bone had already healed smooth over the empty sockets. Think about what that means. No teeth means no chewing, and in the wild you would starve within weeks. But this man didn't die for years. Someone had to be feeding him, softening his food, and keeping him alive long after his body stopped being useful. Scientists called it some of the earliest evidence of compassion in the human fossil record. Almost 2 million years before written language, agriculture, or civilization, somebody was already asking, what do we owe the people who can no longer keep up? Now, fast forward to roughly 50,000 years ago to a cave in Iraqi Kurdistan called Shanidar. In 1957, an archaeologist named Ralph Seletsky uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal, now known as Shanidar I. His body was a list of catastrophes. A crushing blow to the skull, a broken right arm amputated at the elbow, crushed bones in his leg, and profound deafness. In a world where hearing a predator approach is your only warning, a disabled man with a limp and one arm should have been easy prey. And yet, Shanidar I lived into his 40s, an old man by Ice Age standards. How did he outlive most of his group? He was not alone. Someone walked slower so he could keep up, and someone shared meat he could no longer hunt for himself. Someone 50,000 years ago decided that this particular life was worth the extra effort. One more stop, and this one you can actually stand in front of in a museum today. In 1991, 2 hikers found a frozen body in the Alps on the border of Austria and Italy, named Otzi. He died around 3300 BCE, and his body was so well preserved that researchers could read his medical history like a chart. Otzi was lactose intolerant, genetically prone to heart disease, and infected with the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. He was also carrying whipworm in his gut, and tucked into his belongings was a piece of birch fungus. That fungus contains a compound that can kill intestinal parasites. In other words, a man dying 5,000 years ago was self-medicating his worm infection with the only pharmacy available to him: the forest. Here is the evidence stack. A toothless old man fed by his community, a one-armed, deaf Neanderthal who lived into old age, and an Ice Age traveler with a homemade remedy in his pocket. 3 different species, from 3 different eras separated by almost 2 million years, yet the same pattern shows up every single time. Picture the scene inside that cold cave at Shanidar. Shanidar I sits near the fire, his ruined arm wrapped close, listening for footsteps he can no longer fully trust himself to hear. Someone sets a piece of meat in front of him. Not because he hunted it, but because he's still part of the group. A child nearby watches him work a piece of hide with his good hand, learning something only he remembers how to do. In every practical sense, he was a burden on resources, yet the group carried him anyway. Here's the twist that most people get backward. We tend to picture prehistoric life as a brutal filter where the weak simply got erased. But the fossil record tells a different story. Caring for the sick wasn't a luxury. It may have been the very thing that made us human in the first place. To keep a disabled man alive in the Ice Age, you need memory to recall his non-physical value, communication to coordinate care, and emotional bonds to outweigh pure survival. Every one of those traits, memory, communication, bonding, is exactly what builds language, culture, and eventually civilization. The sick and injured weren't the dead weight of human evolution. They may be the reason we needed each other enough to evolve the brains we have. And here's where it lands on you right now. When you're sick, Someone checks in, leaves soup at your door, or just sits with you. Feels like small, basic decency, but it is not small. It is one of the oldest behaviors our species has. When a friend brings you medicine, they're doing exactly what someone did for that toothless man 2 million years ago, or that broken Neanderthal 50,000 years ago. The instinct to care for the helpless is not a modern invention layered on top of cold, selfish biology. It's older than language and maybe older than fire. The next time you feel guilty for needing help while you're sick, ask yourself, who taught you that needing help is a weakness? Because it clearly wasn't your ancestors. They built an entire survival strategy around the opposite idea. So picture breaking your leg with no hospital, no cast, and no antibiotics. By the cold math of survival, you should be dead within a week. Yet for nearly 2 million years, somebody somewhere has been the reason that math didn't add up.